What do Afghanistan, China, and maybe even your favorite vacation spot in Asia have in common? They're on a list, a mental list that Donald Trump isn't shy about building. A list of countries he's criticized, threatened with bans, or outright said, "We don't want them here." From immigration crackdowns to fiery speeches, Trump's stance on certain Asian nations has made headlines again and again. But here's the twist. Some of these countries might surprise you. And number 3, you're not going to believe how Trump's policies affected it, even though it's a U.S. ally. This video isn't about politics. It's about uncovering the facts, the history, and the motives behind the tension. These aren't just countries on a map. They represent millions of people caught in the crosshairs of international drama. So buckle up as we explore the top 10 Asian countries that Trump doesn't want in the United States, based on travel bans, public statements, visa restrictions, and foreign policy clashes. Let's begin the countdown. We start with Iran, one of the most prominent names on Trump's foreign policy radar. Back in 2017, Trump signed Executive Order 13769, also known as the Muslim Ban, which banned entry to the U.S. for citizens of several Muslim-majority countries, and Iran was right there on the list. Trump repeatedly labeled Iran the world's #1 sponsor of terrorism, blaming it for destabilizing the Middle East. The Iran nuclear deal? He tore it up. Iranian students and families were suddenly stuck, flights canceled, visas denied, and dreams postponed. Even Iranian Americans faced increased scrutiny. Green card holders from Iran were detained at airports. A chilling atmosphere surrounded anyone tied to the country. It wasn't just politics, it was personal for many. Iran remains a major flashpoint in U.S. foreign policy, and under Trump, it became crystal clear. He wanted Iran out, not in. But believe it or not, the next country on this list isn't in the Middle East. It's one of the most technologically advanced nations on Earth, and Trump had plenty to say about it. China, the global powerhouse Trump couldn't stop talking about. He called COVID-19 the China virus, sparking global outrage and a rise in anti-Asian sentiment. He imposed tariffs, launched a trade war, banned Chinese tech companies, and accused China of stealing American jobs and intellectual property. Under Trump, the relationship between the U.S. and China hit historic lows. But it wasn't just about trade. There was suspicion at every level. Chinese students were accused of being spies, research collaborations were severed, and visa approvals were delayed or outright rejected. In 2020, Trump even signed an executive order that restricted certain Chinese graduate students and researchers from entering the U.S., claiming they had ties to the Chinese military. Airlines reduced flights, embassies were tense, diplomacy practically frozen. And let's not forget his calls to decouple from China entirely. Trump's message was clear. China wasn't welcome, not in trade, not in tech, not in American universities. But the country at number 8? It's often viewed as peaceful and neutral, but Trump's comments shook that image. Pakistan, an ally on paper, but in Trump's eyes, a source of betrayal. In 2018, Trump cut over $1.3 billion in aid to Pakistan, claiming the country had given the U.S. nothing but lies and deceit. He accused Pakistan of harboring terrorists and not doing enough to capture extremists, despite years of cooperation during the War on Terror. His infamous tweet, "The United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid, and they have given us nothing but lies and deceit." Under Trump, Pakistani nationals applying for U.S. visas saw longer wait times, higher rejection rates, and more scrutiny. Students, tourists, and workers all felt the impact. Even Pakistani officials were publicly snubbed, and diplomatic ties cooled dramatically. For millions of Pakistani Americans, this was a time of fear and frustration. Family visits became harder. Consulates grew quieter. Pakistan may have a long-standing relationship with the U.S., but Trump's tone made one thing loud and clear. He didn't trust them, and he didn't want them in. But wait until we get to number 3. You won't believe which U.S. ally made the list. Trump vowed to bring American troops home, but when it came to Afghanistan, his tone wasn't just anti-war, it was anti-immigration. After 2 decades of U.S. involvement, Trump wanted out, and he made it clear he wasn't interested in welcoming Afghans, even those who risked their lives helping U.S. forces. He reduced the number of special immigrant visas, SIVs, for Afghan interpreters and contractors, delaying evacuations and complicating resettlement efforts. Despite bipartisan pleas, many Afghan allies were left behind. Refugee resettlement numbers for Afghans plummeted under Trump. The message? Afghanistan was part of a chapter he wanted closed, and fast. His statements often painted Afghans with a broad brush, associating the country with terrorism and instability. And when it came to immigration policy, they paid the price. By the end of his term, thousands of vulnerable Afghans remained stuck, barred by policy, slowed by bureaucracy, and blocked by politics. The U.S. may have invaded Afghanistan, but under Trump, the door to America slammed shut for many of its people. Yemen is a country ravaged by war, famine, and one of the worst humanitarian crises in modern history. And yet, under Trump, its people were shut out, without exception. As part of the infamous Muslim ban, Yemen was listed alongside Iran and others. All Yemeni nationals were barred from entering the U.S., even those trying to escape violence, reunite with family, or seek medical treatment. Visa applications were denied en masse. Students with scholarships were stranded. Families were torn apart, weddings postponed, funerals missed. Trump never talked much about Yemen, but the ban spoke volumes. Inaction and silence became a statement. There was no targeted justification, no security evidence cited, just sweeping exclusion. In one viral case, a Yemeni toddler died after being separated from her mother, who was denied a visa under the travel ban. For Yemenis, Trump's America became a locked gate, with no keys offered. Next on the list, Syria, a nation shattered by civil war and brutal repression. But instead of extending a hand to refugees, Trump slammed the door shut. Syria was placed at the top of the travel ban list in 2017. The administration argued it was for national security, but critics pointed out that Syria had virtually no record of exporting terrorism to the U.S. Under Trump, the number of Syrian refugees admitted to the U.S. dropped by over 95%. Thousands of people, mothers, children, teachers, professionals, fled to refugee camps hoping for American protection. Instead, they were met with silence. Trump made it clear, "We don't know who these people are. We're not going to let them in." Even humanitarian parole requests were denied. While past administrations had tried to balance compassion with caution, Trump chose outright exclusion. The Syrian people didn't just lose their homes, they lost hope of rebuilding in the land of freedom. Iraq had a strange place on Trump's list. At first, it was banned outright in 2017. But after diplomatic pressure and public backlash, Iraq was removed from the list, only for its citizens to still face increased scrutiny and denials. Trump's stance on Iraq was shaped by war fatigue, terrorism fears, and a deep distrust of immigrants from conflict zones. Even those who had helped U.S. forces were often denied visas or delayed endlessly. Iraqis applying for tourist or student visas during Trump's term saw higher rejection rates. Meanwhile, Iraqi refugees were deprioritized. The irony? The U.S. invaded Iraq. And yet, under Trump, many Iraqis who had supported American efforts found themselves unwanted and unwelcome. One foot off the ban list, but both hands still tied. Here it is, number 3, and this one might shock you. Turkey, a NATO ally, was often treated like an adversary during Trump's presidency. While not officially part of a travel ban, Trump made it clear he didn't fully trust Turkey. After Turkish forces moved into northern Syria, Trump threatened to destroy Turkey's economy and imposed sanctions. U.S. visas for Turkish citizens were suspended in 2017 after a Turkish employee of the U.S. consulate was arrested. In retaliation, Turkey suspended U.S. visas too. It became a full-blown diplomatic freeze. Travelers were confused. Businesses suffered. Turkish students and tourists suddenly found America out of reach. Trump also criticized Turkey's leadership style, questioned its loyalty to NATO, and blocked arms deals. For a country considered a U.S. ally, the treatment was unusually harsh, and the message subtle but clear. We don't trust you, and we don't want your people flooding in. Turkey's complex relationship with the U.S. reached a boiling point under Trump, and many ordinary citizens paid the price. Surprised? You're not alone. Vietnam isn't a war zone. It's not on any terror list. It's even a top trading partner. But Trump's relationship with Vietnam was more complicated than most realize. Despite praising Vietnam for standing up to China, Trump repeatedly accused it of cheating worse than China in trade. He slapped tariffs on Vietnamese steel and threatened more unless trade imbalances were corrected. But it didn't stop at trade. Trump's immigration policies targeted Vietnamese immigrants with past criminal records, pushing for mass deportations, even those who had lived in the U.S. for decades. The backlash was fierce. Many of these individuals had no ties left in Vietnam, and deporting them raised serious human rights concerns. Still, in Trump's eyes, Vietnam became another opportunist, a country benefiting from America without offering enough in return. A close ally, or a nation Trump never truly trusted. On paper, the Philippines has long been a U.S. ally, militarily, economically, even culturally. Millions of Filipinos live and work in America, and the two nations share historical ties that go back over a century. So why would Donald Trump, of all people, have problems with the Philippines? It all centers around one name, Rodrigo Duterte. Duterte, the controversial former president of the Philippines, openly insulted former U.S. presidents, cursed American diplomacy, and even threatened to end military ties with the United States. While Trump and Duterte seemed to get along on the surface, both known for their brash, populist styles, Trump never truly trusted the relationship. He even called for tighter immigration scrutiny on the Philippines in 2020 after DHS flagged it for overstaying visa violators. And there's more. Trump's administration considered removing the Philippines from the U.S. visa waiver review list due to national security concerns and undocumented migration. Despite being an ally, the Philippines saw increased travel vetting under Trump. Plus, Trump's hardline immigration stance often lumped the Philippines with other problem countries, even though it never officially made the travel ban list. Behind closed doors, the message was clear. Friendship or not, Trump's America First policy didn't have room for unpredictable partners. There you have it. 10 Asian countries that Donald Trump, through policy or public statements, made clear he didn't want in the U.S. Some were banned, others were shamed, and a few were quietly sidelined, even allies. This list isn't about taking sides. It's about exposing how power shapes perception and how policies affect real people. So, did any country on this list surprise you? Was it number 3? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're from one of these countries, we want to hear your story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Elite Counts for more revealing, thought-provoking content just like this. See you in the next countdown.